Morning, people. Coming at you from the bunker once again. And not much choice this morning about being in the bunker because outside, well, last night we just got dumped on with snow. Um, I've checked all the forecasts. I didn't see this one coming. I don't know. Even people that, I went out yesterday and last night, and it was not in the conversation. People were not talking about this storm. But anyway, we got dumped on. So um, at some point, I think I'll go outside and show you a little bit of what I'm talking about. Took a little bit of damage, but I will build back better, and that's what I want to talk about this morning. Is this whole notion, this phrase, and I don't know what the implications are. First of all, however enormous this bill is, supposedly, buried in it is God only knows what, right? How many lawmakers, these people that are just putting in their time to get reelected, actually read this shit, right? Probably very few. So nobody knows what's in this thing. So we've got this phrase, this propagandistic phrase, build back better, with the B's looking like sixes. Okay. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about that. I need a little bit of the devil's piss here. Excuse me a second. How about not build back better? How about do it yourself, build it yourself, and fuck the government doing it for you? Try that one. I know it's not a catchy phrase, but think about this, if you would. I've been thinking about this. The people that will probably be, by far, the least affected of all of us from this pandemic, even the the foreboding economic collapse that's heading our way, like a slow-moving tidal wave. The least affected, move this, is going to be, oh goodness, the people who have been least affected all along, right? People that have been living pretty close to the way they've been living for thousands of years. Indigenous tribes all over the world, people who have lived off grid in climates like, the outback or Siberia or even Alaska, right? These people that they hunt, they fish, they do it on their own, they build their own structures, they live in harmony with nature. My idea of building back better is go back to that. These structures that we live in that put us in enormous debts, these houses that we don't build anymore, we leave it up to contractors. Yeah, we do the DIY at Lowe's and Home Depot, but we don't build the structure. They're only made to last 50, 75 years, 100 at the most or whatever. These aren't worth the money that, I just watched this documentary on Hurricane Katrina that took down this whole amusement park in 2005. And all the drywall and electricity and all these things that are in the walls, that was decimated in a day. And 15 years later, they haven't been able to build back better. That park closed because this storm moved in and the drywall got, moldy and had to be replaced, and they couldn't do it. It would have been too much money. So it's just there just rotting. Nature is slowly creeping in and taking over. Okay, as it will do. So that structure lasted about, 3 years before it was destroyed? Yeah, great. Billions of dollars in an amusement park for one storm. Yeah, it was a big storm, huge hurricane, whatever. But it's just a ridiculous notion to pour billions and billions and billions of dollars on building a structure like this, and then having to rebuild it 3 years later or 4 years later, whatever it was. And they still couldn't do it. The notion that I have is, even in terms of Americans or America's history, Thoreau had it right when he went out to Walden. There is no utopia. that someone's going to design and build. Certainly not Klaus Schwab, right? Fuck these people. World Economic Forum and all that. Hey, if you can't do it yourself, then how good are you at figuring out the problems of humankind, right? It's that Jungian concept that if you can't become actualized as a human being, to put Piaget's term of constructivism and autonomy into practice, then handing it off to the government to do it for you is just ludicrous, right? Learn it yourself. Do Walden all over again. Build your cabin in the fucking woods, raise your own food, do what you can do with your own hands, and call it good and make improvements upon it and build community around and together with people that are like-minded. That's how you do it. That's how you build back. That's how it's always been done. Sorry if I sound a little pissed off this morning. I'm like, for God's sake, people. Even taking care of our health. Common sense. Common cures. Using your sense to heal yourself. Cutting through the bullshit, the red tape, and thinking for yourself. These are what are going to get us back to becoming self-actualized human beings again. Stop leaving it up to others to do it for us. I don't know what's in that bill. I don't even care. But they're talking trillions of dollars. Most of it, I would guess, would go to the military-industrial complex or something along those lines, where we don't make anything in America anymore, and that's a sad fact, right? I mean, I'm old enough to know that Made in America stamped on a product was the gold standard of products in the world. If you had something that was made in America, I mean, for God's sake, even Levi's were made in San Francisco. They're not made in San Francisco. Nothing's made in America anymore. We exported all this shit out to, China and other places. Our own ingenuity, we exported it. We don't have it anymore. Our minds went with it, it seems like. We can't even fix shit that we built in the first place. Roads and bridges and buildings and structures and God knows what. Our infrastructure is collapsing and it's our own damn fault. That's what we need to get back to, right? I mean, let's get real here. So in looking at this whole moving forward, if we're going to build back, well, go back to the way it used to be done. Get your hands dirty. Start learning how to garden. Start there. Start somewhere. When I was a teacher, especially with younger kids, I wanted this whole, well, it wasn't my phrase, but, the concept of a classroom without walls. Go out in nature, go out in your community, get outside of the classroom where kids are falling asleep and bored to tears, and do something, especially with your hands. That the oldest connection we have as human beings is our brain-hand connection, right? Using tools to make things. This is what differentiates us from other animals. Okay, that's great. That's being human. But here's the other notion I've been thinking about as well. In connection with other animals, we can't just say we're completely different from all other animals. In that aspect of building using tools with our hands, okay, yes. In other aspects too, creating art and all the humanities and all the beautiful things that we've done as human beings, compose beautiful music and all that, right? This is what makes us human too. But let's think about this. This is the other thing that seems to be happening in this time, which is, this epidemic of mental health crisis. Yeah, it's probably very real. I don't doubt it. But how do we get to that point too? So we're not just talking about infrastructure and buildings and what have you. We're talking about our minds. And what is our default mode here? When I look at animals, well, let me just back up a little bit. If all the great religions and psychologies seem to think that our default mode is suffering, then why is that so? Why is the human being or the human mind, going back to our predilection for suffering? I don't think other animals are there. Hard to know what's in a dog's head, but it sure doesn't look like it's suffering, you know? They whine, they whimper, they express, okay. But they don't seem fucking miserable, and they're not thinking about taking their own lives. You know, my heart goes out to people that are suffering. I'm not saying that it's not real. I'm just asking why it's so. And on that level, how can we do better than that? Why do we have to default to that in our mind? I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a neurologist. I don't know. But it's a damn shame, isn't it? That we've come to that. We're like helpless animals in the way that we think, the way that we create, or our lack of creativity. And I think it's time to get back to those things. So if we're going to build back better, let's start with ourselves. Let's start with our mind. Let's start with our own thinking. Let's start with our hands and what we can do and what we can accomplish. Don't leave that up to others to save us, to fix us, to help us all the time. What can we do? What is the human potential in ourselves? So that was the waking thought I had this morning. You know, the snow that came in caused a little bit of damage out in the back, and maybe if I get a chance, I'll show you some clips of that. Whatever. Because I built it, you know, and I knew that it was not completely done before the winter came on, and this snow load did a number on it. But I have no doubt that I can build back better, and I will. So I'm going to stop it right there. I got a phone call coming in. God bless, people. Have a good day. Talk later. Okay. Well, this is what it looked like this morning. So those tracks that are in front of me were made at about 6:30 this morning. It's still kind of dark. And here's my pond. And that structure used to be about 5 feet taller. That snow load brought it down last night. And it's actually working because it's keeping the water flowing from the waterfall. So that's actually a good thing. But this is the roof that collapsed. I'm not gonna walk under it right now because it looks like it could come down even more. But yeah.